David, how are you? Dave Lawrence at Hawaii Public Radio.
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Good to hear your voice. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. It was just
That's no big deal.
a zoo here on this end. My apologies. How's the signal sound? Am I loud, soft? Anything I can do to make it better for you listening wise?
It's excellent.
Excellent. So are yours, or so is yours. All right, let's just let me start rolling. We'll get it started. Thank you so much, first and foremost, for returning as our very special guest. I really appreciate it, Brother Dave.
It's my pleasure.
And it's great to have you back on. The blues, the whole blues, and nothing but the blues is certainly going to factor large into this tour of Hawaii. New record, recently released with 11 covers, couple originals released last October, Robert Johnson material, Ray Charles, Sonny Boy Williamson, other legendary figures. Explain what you were after with this one, and talk a little bit about what comes to mind relating to the recording process.
Well, all of my previous recordings have taken things from several different genres, many different genres, I should say. Sometimes every track is kind of a different kind of music, and this is different but the same. That is, it's all blues, but there are a lot of genres of music that have their own idea of blues. And so we kind of gathered those, and there you have it.
And blues, as you point out, can come in so many different flavors and subcategories and interpretations, styles.
Sure, there's swing tunes that are called blues. There's the Chicago blues, which is not anything like a swing tune. There's the acoustic country blues. There's Ray Charles. He's a world unto himself.
Right.
There's lots of stuff.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of variety. And the record includes some special guests. Bill Payne from Little Feat, and you've obviously, and we'll get into it, you've worked with a lot of different folks and had some remarkable experiences through your career. Share some stories of maybe getting to know people like Bill and putting down tracks with him on the record.
Well, I was asked to go out to Jamaica, where Little Feat does a regular
residency
thing.
kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So I went out, and I think I'd met Bill one or two times before, but I got to know him a lot better out on the island. And not only Bill, but in the horn section was Blue Lou, Lou. Oh, I'm having a senior moment.
Marini?
Yes, Blue Lou Marini, which if your listeners don't recognize the name, just imagine the Aretha Franklin scene in Blues Brothers and the saxophone player walking along the counter. That's Blue Lou.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
And what a way to is that in the Grill? I believe that they do that in Jamaica, or is
yes, I think so. Yeah,
a gorgeous place. Gorgeous.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah, it is one of the nicest places there. And speaking of islands, when it comes to the tour that you're doing of the Hawaiian Islands, tell us who you're bringing with you. And I know that you move songs around so that every show is kind of different. Talk about how you're going to be putting together set lists.
I don't make a set list.
I like that.
I've never done it in my life. Before we go on stage, I decide on the first, maybe the second tune, and then it's what feels like it needs to be played comes next.
And who's in the band?
The band is Josh Kanuski playing the drums, and this is my regular touring band.
Nice.
This quintet is what I tour with most of the time now. So Josh Kanuski plays the drums. Slavik Senyashenko plays bass and sings high harmonies. Nate Grower plays fiddle, guitar, mandolin, and Mark Cosgrove plays acoustic and electric guitars and sings the low harmonies.
It's going to be a nice ensemble of folks and totally mixing it up musically, which is obviously keeps those cats on their toes, huh? They have to be aware of a pretty large catalog of material.
Our repertoire is about 90 tunes.
Yeah, that's a lot to be familiar with.
Yep.
And
but they know this stuff, and most of them I just start. They're there.
Right.
There's some that we all start together, so I have to actually turn around and tell them what it's going to be.
I
But
like that.
a lot of them I just start, they're there.
Very spontaneous, and it certainly probably comes a factor in the way that you choose to lay out your concerts is probably just a facet of your life and the kind of experiences you've had. Let's dial back to how you first developed as a music lover and then musician. Explain how, as a little boy, music first touched you.
I was born in Philadelphia, but my family moved to Queens and then to Westchester County. So I hit Westchester at the age of 4. So that's pretty much where I grew up.
So right outside of New York is where you grew up.
Right.
And how did the music first get into your life?
You know, it seems as though it was always there. Records, mostly, LPs, and the radio. And I just loved both.
What led to you getting to study under Reverend Gary Davis?
Well, I studied with Reverend Davis right around 1963 and 4 or 5, somewhere around there, and that was just a wonderful experience. And he was an extraordinary man, one of the greatest guitar players to walk the planet, and a unique guitar player.
And where was it that you crossed paths with him? How did you end up getting to do that?
Well, I was walking up Bleecker Street, and there was a sandwich sign on the sidewalk that said, "This afternoon, Reverend Gary Davis." And I had a record of which one side was the Reverend, and his playing was baffling and fantastic. So I went in, and I sat down, I listened to the set, and afterwards I approached him, and not expecting a positive answer, I asked him if I could take lessons with him. And he said, "Yes, bring the money, honey, $5. and that was the Reverend, and that's how we started. At that point, he was living in the Bronx, but later he moved out to Queens to a nice place. When he was in the Bronx, he was mostly playing in the streets of Harlem. But Peter, Paul, and Mary recorded a song that he had really changed quite a bit, and did, and they got it copywritten for him in his name, with his help, and it was a hit. I think they called it "If I Had My Way." He called it "Samson and Delilah," and that enabled him to get out of the place he was in the Bronx and live in a really nice place in a nice neighborhood.
Kind of like giving back to him in some ways.
Yes, and it was. I applaud them. That was the right thing to do, and it made a big difference in his life, I think.
That must have been a cat that in the times that you've associated with Jorma Kaukonen, because I know he was a big Reverend Gary Davis fan too.
Yeah, and I've got to say that I think Jorma is most responsible for popularizing the Reverend's music. He listened to and studied the records. I mean, I had the advantage of being able to go to Queens and study with the Reverend. Jorma just really studied those records and got an awful lot out of them and loved them, and he's popularized. A lot of people would never have heard of the Reverend Gary Davis without Jorma.
It's probably a good point. Good point on that. And a lot of the cats your posters are up right now. People are excited because you're coming to town, and the poster is really one of these things that makes you anticipate a show. There are a lot of artists listed on it that you're associated with throughout your career, and I just thought we could it is radio, but we'll look at the poster together via conversation and maybe hear some of the stories about the artists that the promoter has listed on there that you're tied to. Bob Dylan is one that just obviously sticks out. When did that come to be, and explain crossing paths with Bob?
He called me up and asked me to help him check out a studio, which I later found out he knew the studio really well. The album that came out as a result of that was Self-Portrait, and then I worked with him on his next 2 albums, and then in the 90s I produced a bunch of tracks with him.
What is the best memory when you think about, it doesn't have to be the best, but an endearing memory, maybe a memory of learning from Bob or just a fun story of working on one of those projects?
Well, he wanted to do tunes that I performed, including a number I wrote. And at that time, he had a recording of me doing a song called "Nobody's Fault But Mine," which I later recorded again. The first recording was during the disco scare, and that's what he had in his mind, this disco-ish version. I mean, it wasn't pure disco by any means, but it had that kind of a rhythm to it.
Right.
And I got a choir that my wife used to sing with. It was a church choir, and she was the only gray face in it. And they were just wonderful singers, and they were at the session. And I don't think, maybe one of them might have heard of Bob Dylan, but most of them had never heard of him. He's not really popular in the African American gospel scene. So they were there, and they were on. It was, I don't know, at least 20 women on one side of the studio, and then in the vocal booth on the other side of the studio was Bob, and he was playing the guitar, trying to get a groove on the tune that wasn't the one that he learned from my record, and he was working on it, and the women were getting a little impatient, so they decided to pray. And my wife told me about this. The prayer went, "Dear Lord, please help this man find what it is he's looking for, and with a quickness." So that's my favorite story.
That's a good one. That's
a
very good one. What about Jerry? I see Jerry's name on there, too.
Which Jerry? Jerry Garcia, Jerry Jeff Walker?
Jerry Garcia.
I did 2 albums with him, or he did 2 albums with me. They were my albums. And I remember I was at Woodstock. I didn't perform, but I was there and backstage, and during the famous rainstorm, Jerry and I, just the 2 of us, shared a teepee, and we just played through the whole rainstorm. It was a nice afternoon, and I think we both enjoyed it.
Is that where you first developed had you already known him prior to that?
No, I think that was it. I think that's where I kind of met him.
And then that led to getting to work with him later. No, it's very cool, and God bless him. Hopefully he's watching over us from a better place. How about the Eagles?
Well, I knew Bernie Ledden of the Eagles, and kind of knew the other guys who had been in the Corvettes, which became the Eagles. It was Linda Ronstadt's backup band. But the guy I knew best was Bernie Ledden, and he invited me to play on one of their albums while he was playing on one of mine. We had a great time.
And what was the Eagles? Which album or tune is that you're on?
It was I'm on a tune that was an instrumental that Bernie wrote, and it was the album with the deer's skull on the cover.
One of These Nights, I think.
Yeah, you got me, but
okay.
That was the one anyhow with that steer's head.
Right, I think that's it. I'm going to look that up when we're done talking because we have those records here. One of the, and maybe he's going to pop in at one of your shows because I just had his kid on the other day and he said he's going to be in the islands. Willie Nelson, we just had Lucas on recently, and Willie, I see, is also on the tour poster for your Hawaii tour. When did you get to cross paths with the great Willie Nelson?
Well, I used to do a lot of sessions for Arif Mardin, who later he produced Ravi Shankar's daughter, Nora Jones. But he was a great producer, and at the time that I used to work with him, I was living in New York City then, and he was producing for Atlantic. He was a staff producer, And he called me for a lot of different records, including Shotgun Willie, what was later called Shotgun Willie. And I remember that at one point he said, play me a solo something like this. And he played a solo to me, and I said, that's a great solo. Why don't you play that? Now I could kick myself. I let go a nice solo, but there was no reason not for him to do it. He's a good guitar player.
Are you still in touch with him?
No, not. I mean, I talk to him every time our paths cross, but it's not
a regular thing.
Yeah.
I get you. No, it's understandable too, and he's a busy boy like you. He's always up to something. Ringo Starr, George Harrison.
Yeah, George and I wrote a song together, the song is called "The Hold Up." We were both at my manager's home for Thanksgiving dinner. It was just my manager's family and George and me. And my manager's daughter had a gut string guitar, a little thing. It was, not a professional instrument or anything. But George and I are both guitar junkies, so we were passing the guitar back and forth, and we weren't trying to write a song, but we did. Before we knew it. And with Ringo, it was interesting. I used to run into the guys in the band, Levon, Rick Danko, Richard Manuel, Garth Hudson, Robbie Roberts, and I used to run into them all kinds of places. I'd run into them backstage and at hotels, at truck stops even. Anyhow, I was staying at the Chateau Marmont in Los Angeles, and bumped into who did I bump into first? My mind. Great singer, bass player. I just said his name a second ago. He was. The bass player for the band. I hope you get to edit this because I feel
not
really
Rick Danko.
Yes, Rick Danko.
Okay.
So I ran into Rick, and he said that he was going to play fiddle on a Ringo Starr record, and did I have a fiddle and would I come too? So sure. So that's how I did the first record I did with Ringo, and I also did one later on.
And did you get to do the recordings and stuff around him, or was it one of those things you're kind of doing your part at a different time than he is?
I think the first time, I think we were pretty much in the studio. There was a few of us in the studio together, so I think he was playing. He probably wasn't doing his vocals yet. And for the later one, it was overdubs.
That's cool. It's what a great connection that you had. And finally on the connections things, because we'd be here all day, but one of them, an artist who just played here in the islands recently, Bonnie Raitt.
Oh, Bonnie's wonderful. I've known Bonnie for a long, long time. And I couldn't tell you where I first met her. It must have been backstage at some gig that we were both doing. I remember one gig called Stomp in '76. It was a huge thing. It was an outdoor festival. It must have been at least 100,000 people, and Bonnie was doing it, and I was doing it with my band, and we walked around the backstage area just gabbing at each other for an hour or two.
That's fun times. Well, there's a lot of cats that you've got in your legacy, and certainly all those experiences are the kind of thing that can help shape a great record like your new one, The Blues, The Whole Blues, Nothing But the Blues, which we're going to be fortunate to hear a bunch of as you roll through the islands. And hopefully maybe we can try to get together and record a little in-person thing while you're at the Blue Note, perhaps in between sets one night, if that works out.
I'd be happy to. By the way, at least one of the nights at the Blue Note, there is a good chance of some people coming to sit in. But since it's not nobody signed any contracts. You don't sign contracts for sitting in. I don't want to say any more than that.
No, I know. I hear you. And that'll be an exciting little addition if that works out for you while you're in Honolulu.
Yeah.
I'm
really looking forward to it.
Say again?
I'm really looking forward to it.
No, we're looking forward to it. I remember last time that you came, I don't think you came through Honolulu, right? It was just like other islands and not in Honolulu back last time we talked, which was several.
I think I might have been on the island, but I didn't perform in Honolulu.
Right.
You're right.
As I remember it, because that was the downside of it. Well, we're excited for this.
Well, you've been listening to All Things Considered with Dave Lawrence on Hawaii Public Radio, which I hope you're supporting. We need you to support it. This is David Bromberg, and if you don't know who that is, don't worry about it. I have no idea who you are.
Very good. I appreciate it, David. And
it's a pleasure.
And I'll connect with you when you get to town. We'll work out details. I'll talk to Beth, and with Les, the promoter, we'll get it all solid, and we'll spend some quality time when you get to the Honolulu.
All right. It sounds good to me.
Hope you had fun today. Thank you for doing this.
I did. Thank you.
Be safe, David. Aloha, brother.
Aloha.